Hi, everybody. It's the Plant-Based Business Hour. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. Great to be with you again in 2023. Yes, the year is off to a great start. How are you doing with staying in shape? How are your New Year's resolutions going? Wait a minute. I am not talking about you and your diet. I'm talking about corporations and brands. Are their brands sticking to climate shape and nutritional shape? What am I talking about? Well, I don't know. Let's figure it out. I want to bring on my guest today, who also, by the way, is on the Thought Leadership Council of VegTech Invest. We are always grateful for her knowledge drop and experience. I wanted to share that knowledge drop with you here today on the Plant-Based Business Hour. Please welcome my guest today, Dr. Maha Tahiri. She is the CEO and a consultant with Nutrition Sustainability Strategies. Doctor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year. We still have a month to say that, so
Yes.
we'll just use all the time we have to wish for a new year.
Can I call you Maha?
Sorry? Yes,
Can
of
I
course.
call? Okay.
You can
Okay.
drop the doctor.
Okay. So I will do that. Now, let me just kind of dive right in here. In the show notes, I'll have everyone's access to your website, which is also scrolling across the screen for those people who are listening on audio. That is nutritionsustainability.com. But I want to dive right in here and ask, what is nutrition sustainability, and are brands interested in it?
Well, I think so. Otherwise, I would not have had a career.
Well, good to know.
So for those who don't know me, I have spent 20 more years in the food industry, mainly leading health and nutrition uh, for Fortune 500 companies. And the reason why actually I was in those companies, it's because they had to build a nutrition strategy. They had a brand that actually depended on nutrition, and in some cases nutrition and sustainability, because more and more consumers were actually linking these two together. And so we look at nutrition and at sustainability at items of corporate responsibility, but I don't think we should look at them that way, because corporations do not look at them like that anymore. That might have been the case like 15, 20 years ago, but it's not the case anymore. Corporations do business and nutrition and or sustainability. They're part of the strategy. They're not doing it. They're doing it because it's a good business, and they're doing it because it's the right thing to do. But it's also because it's bringing them money, and it's bringing them consumers that have the demand for nutrition, and they've been doing it for quite a while. I've worked for companies that were doing indulgent product. I worked for companies that had categories that were more on the healthy food side. And in both of them, they had to have a strategy on nutrition. And it actually leads multiple areas, whether it's innovation. How do you innovate in your portfolio? How do you, and when I say innovation, it's both. It's renovation. How do you make your current portfolio healthier? And a lot of companies that I worked for were big companies, and they actually had targets, decreased. Me and my team, and mainly my team, actually were working a lot on how to help the businesses decrease sodium, sugar, fat in their products, but also innovation, how to launch products that were actually bringing an additional benefit to consumers. So that's the side that is on innovation. Then there is labeling, how to label products, how to make actually consumers aware of how nutritional this product is, or not. Because yeah, when you have it all over the world, you have actually scores that show which products is how the product is compared in its category. Yeah,
Well, let me jump in for just a second there because I think there's a lot to unpack, and I just want to make sure people understand it. So, first of all, we have a doctor next to your name, but you're not running a corporate wellness program, or you're not focusing on employee health or employee wellness or insurance programs or workout strategies for employees. You're talking about brand health and the business behind the strategy to make healthy nutritional products, and that might even overlap with, let's say, indulgent products. Is that right?
exactly, exactly, exactly.
Okay, let me clarify another thing for people just because they might not understand. First of all, I'll just repeat, you said that it is good business to have good products, basically, which makes sense to all of us business people. So it's great to see that brands are tapping into a strategy that says this just isn't a corporate responsibility, like I should do it, but it's actually tied to the numbers. And I always think that's the best execution. When you can tie it back to numbers, then you know it stays and doesn't get cut during budget cuts because it's tied to a number. So I think that's great. But you also mentioned one thing, and I know you've got more to say, and I want to let you say it. But you
No, no,
say
no, go ahead.
when a company looks at its portfolio of brands, it looks at should they make them nutritional? What can they do to have that kind of messaging? How can they have a good business strategy around that? I'll just say, because I hear the word portfolio, and of course, I'm with VegTech Invest, and we had the exact same perspective about investing. When you look at the portfolio, all the companies that are in the umbrella, just like the company looks at all the brands that are in their umbrella, we say, well, hey, we think it's good business to invest in companies that are doing nutrition and sustainability and efficiency for the global food supply system. So it's interesting that on a large scale, we think of investing, and then you start to narrow it down and you see that these CEOs and brand managers look at their portfolio in the
And,
same way. So it's
and
interesting.
to reinforce your point, when, for example, I was the chief health and wellness officer for General Mills, I had calls with investors like yourself who would actually grill me on the nutrition strategy, on what have we achieved, what have we not achieved, what are the plans for. I mean, they were pretty demanding, because, and that came, like, over the years became very, very, very clear that impact investors were demanding of companies to be very serious about their health and wellness strategy for their brand, for their portfolio, for their products, for their practices too, in terms of marketing, etc.
Sure. And further authenticity. You have an educated consumer now. Since COVID, people know how to Google, and they Google their information. And so you can't mess around anymore. You have to be the real deal, and you have to know your nutrition numbers and be able to make a credible story about the health benefits that you offer. So much that I want to dive into about where we're going in terms of health benefits from a brand perspective. But before I do that, again, just a bit of clarification for people, because we see doctor in front of your name. Have you ever practiced nutrition or worked as a dietitian? No, this has always been from a business perspective. Help us understand your
I'm a
background.
doctor because I have a PhD in human nutrition, and so
Okay.
I'm a doctor in human nutrition. I'm not a medical doctor, so I spent many, many years learning about human nutrition, which actually, if to be fair, a lot of medical doctors don't do.
Don't.
They barely. I mean, we've even done a survey on how many hours medical doctors spend on nutrition during their curricula, and it's somewhere between 8 to 20 hours during their whole education. So yeah, we are a special breed. But we've been working a lot to actually get the across the points that nutrition should be really, really, truly part of the medical curriculum. But I'm not a medical doctor. I have a PhD in human nutrition.
But I would agree with you. Very few hours in medical school actually dedicated to nutrition. If we had to put a percentage on it, would we say something like, 8 to 12, 20 hours is going to be maybe 5%, maybe less, three? And that's not counting residency. That's just counting
No,
4 years.
that's not counting the residency.
Yeah.
But for
So
example, there are some specialties, there are some residencies that would have more of it, like gastroenterology, like people
sure.
who work more on some areas that are more linked to biochemistry and biology and cardiovascular health, people will really know more about nutrition than others. But the general practitioners, if they really don't go into it and do the effort by themselves to learn about it, it's not given to them in regular curriculum
Yeah.
of medical school.
And it's really another show because we could go down this rabbit hole. But of course, everyone goes to their general practitioner and they ask for dietary and nutritional advice. And often the GP gives it. So that's just a topic for another.
Maybe you direct them to a dietitian.
Hopefully, yes.
Dietitians are extremely, truly, I mean, I lived a lot. I lived in other countries. I lived in other continents. In the US, dietitians are superstars. They really, really are well educated. It's a 5 years curriculum. In some countries in Europe, it's 2 years. And
Yeah.
so just to give you a perspective of how well we have it here, if we wanted to really use the expertise of dietitians, they know what they're talking about, and they are well trained to help people.
Yeah, a rigorous curriculum if you follow the dietitian curriculum. But I'm happy to see that, and of course, it would make so much sense now that we take off the layers of the onion, that a food company would be interested in having someone with a PhD in human nutrition to help them figure out a nutrition strategy for either a specific brand or a portfolio of brands. Are you seeing that over the years, more companies are diving into nutrition for their messaging? And I'm surprised to hear that even indulgent brands look at nutrition. Why is that?
Well, if there were times where people would ask me, why would you work for an indulgent company? You're a nutritionist. And I'm like, well,
They need you the most.
they need you the most, because there are a lot of things you can do with nutrition, and it's not always the number of carbohydrates or the number of calories. It's also the portion size, which is something that is widely underlooked in the US. So I'll give you an example. If you introduce a lower portion size into a mix of drinks, for example, not only do you are introducing a lower portion size, but it drives the consumption of lower portions for everybody. If you're drinking this size, then you would go and drink this size, just by the mere presence of a small portion size in in the mix. So there's a lot that can be done. Formulation is one, for sure. Formulation is one. Using more natural substitute for sugar is absolutely something that can be done for many beverages or even solid food. But the portion size, we really don't talk enough about the how. We talk so much about the what, but not about the how.
I love that behavior and how one nudges behavior. So the supersize me for $1, or these sort of really bad practices, the
Absolutely.
big gulp. I don't want to just pick on some companies. I mean, I think all food companies try to do their marketing strategies and come up with creative options, but I think of those two in particular that extremely detrimental. That you go to the movie theater and there's no price difference between the mid-sized popcorn and then humongous, which I've eaten myself, by the way. So I point no fingers at anyone but myself. I have sat through a 2-hour movie and been like, this is great. Popcorn as big as my lap, and that's the size of the bucket. So, it's, as you say, these nudging ways that companies can help people get healthier. My question to you is, should they? Is that their place? Do we look to companies to tell us what to do? At what point do you want someone telling you what TV channel to watch, or someone telling you what size drink to have? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
That is not a topic I'm gonna.
Oh no. Okay. Oh, have I gone where I shouldn't go?
That is very, very personal. Should the government or should the companies go into personal people's life? that is not something I will express my opinion on.
Okay.
But
Woo.
but what I will express my opinion on is, um, I think the way we look at food should be, and maybe this is where, in a generational perspective, we need to course correct. We
Mm,
don't buy food like we are buying something, buy one, get one free.
yes. Yeah.
It's not a question of quantity, but it's a question of balance between quantity and quality.
Hmm.
And that is really different in the US compared to other places where, um, even there have been studies with restaurants that try to cut down their portion sizes.
Mm.
People
Does it
stop
work?
going to them.
Oh, people stop going to them. Yeah, it's once you've created the monster, so to speak,
And
there's this sense of value. Like if it's not really big,
exactly.
quantity's better than quality. And that, yeah, that's hard.
And so that is where I think we need to be mindful that in the next generations, we are really insisting on the quality of the food, where it comes from,
Mm,
all the things that we really would like to have our next generation to be worried about, or to be interested in more than worried about. I really don't like to associate food with anxiety. um,
mm,
more than okay, did I have enough food for the money that I have put in,
mm,
versus did I have the right food for it, did I have the right enjoyment from it, was it a memorable experience. And so that's I think it's something that we can work on as a collective for the next generations and for ourselves.
and for ourselves. This is interesting. I'd like to unpack that a little bit. So, do you see corporations, brands being interested in that? Or do you see just kind of a general cultural zeitgeist that you'd like to see the conversation shift, maybe starting with parenting and then on to university cafeterias, et cetera?
Well, I'll give you an example of a company that I think are absolutely doing great things. The company is a startup. It's Once Upon a Farm,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I love what they do. And really, they are working on having the best fruits and vegetables. They're working on the diversity of their food. They're working so that actually the initiation to flavors, and we
Mm,
know that the more we expose kids to multiple flavors at an early age, the more as an adult their repertoire of fruits and vegetables is bigger.
mhm,
We
mhm,
know that. So it's this type of thinking, and therefore this type of companies that are actually embracing that thinking and working with it and developing products that, and it's not only them, sorry, I'm not doing any
yeah.
there are other companies that are also doing um, good things for childhood nutrition. The point is, we know in parenting there are things that we can teach moms much better. Choice versus very restricted um, parenting. There's a lot more to say about that. So that's
Oh.
something that if you want to unpack that, I'll actually will connect you even with experts of that will actually can give you really a very good perspective of what the science says about how what are the best practices of parenting, so that you increase the intake of healthy foods earlier in
In one's life, and that's so true of everything we do. uh, what we do on a daily basis is that which we used to do on a daily basis. I mean, these educational practices that help us form habits, then they're very hard to break once they're established. So it's better to form habits young and early. And
Mhm.
then if you start working out young and early, you will probably work out well into your 60s, if not, early 70s. If you don't come to that until later, then it's harder for you. So I see the benefit of early good practices, and it's
And
very
talking about startups, I mean, this is a startup that is making food for for
Mm-hmm.
for young children. But let's talk about all the other startups that are making plant-based food, that are making other foods. And there, I would love to see more nutrition expertise in these companies. I would
Yes,
love, yeah.
a function of budget, of course. So having an expert dedicated to nutrition only for a startup is probably hard, but you can.
The company, Elizabeth, like this is the pushback that I'll give you on this one. It's a food company.
Yes, I
If
see.
a food company has a molecular biologist, has an expert in fermentation, has an expert in this and in this and in this in their R&D, and they don't have anybody at all in nutrition for a long time,
I see that. I see this. Yeah. Huge
that's,
oversight. Yeah.
for me, it's again, it's the mindset that we need to change. It's
Mm-hmm.
the mindset of companies and startups that are making food needs to change, that we are making food for people who have behaviors, for people who have lives. And food is not a technology. Food is something that people actually eat, put inside themselves. And that is a very intimate thing that we're doing with people. And therefore, having someone who is not just working on the mechanism of action of how you're developing the food, it is very important.
Mm-hmm. No, I see what you're saying. I mean, I do see food as science. It's sort of chemistry. Food is chemistry. So
Mhm.
at its basic level, I do see it as science, and therefore that might lend itself to technology. It's also a conversation we can have, but I definitely see the value of having a nutritionist. I mean, some of the things one can do as a startup is really target a very specific market. So if you're targeting a market that is interested in health already, you are meeting them at a certain education level because they've done the Googling, they've done the research, they've read the books, and they're looking for a certain level of quality in food and nutrition, et cetera. So if you're producing that kind of brand, you need a nutritionist. Of course, your food products, you can't not have it, but you're already communicating with a very specific target market. Now, the broader brands that are like, hey, it's Oreos and everybody should have them, I think they almost need it more because their consumer isn't. There's so many people that they're talking to that would eat an Oreo that they're not all going to be at the same education level. Would you agree?
No.
No, good. Oh, this is such a fun podcast. Good. I'm
No,
so glad you're not agreeing.
I just, and maybe it's preaching for my chapel, but I, from experience and for having worked for big companies, and now for 3 years, I have been only working with startups that are really making food that is improving our food system. Um, I am a strong believer that if you do not integrate nutrition into your strategy from the beginning, you will be catching up at the end.
Mm.
And catching up is not a way of, um it's not a way, you'll be missing out in
Mhm.
opportunities of how you can actually integrate nutrition into your strategy and make it really truly a reality in the market.
Mhm.
I mean, there are a lot of companies that are developing cheese, alternative cheese. Okay, we cannot be like cheese from a nutritional perspective. Agree with that 100%. And we should not be. However, how can we be? How should we be? If you don't think about that from the beginning, you
I
might
see.
lose opportunities of developing products that actually could have a better nutrition profile, or a nutrition profile that compensates for other things that cheese is not bringing.
I see. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying with a nutritionist on staff, you can start to establish goals before you even get to final product development. So you'll say we need a product that is high fiber as well as high protein, for example. I'm
Mhm.
just picking that out of a hat.
And I'm
And
not
so
saying that it's always with the nutritionist or staff, but I'm saying with nutrition in mind from the
mhm,
beginning, and then
mhm.
every company will do it the way they can. Um, you actually, you kind of think about it from the beginning, and then you see at what stage it is the best for you to execute it. Maybe I don't know, if you're doing a fermentation, you'll see, okay, well, maybe I can actually, can I, um, can I see how I can get better fats? If
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about it from the beginning, is that something that you can consider?
Mm-hmm. I see.
Maybe. I'm just hypothesizing, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying that if you don't think about it from the beginning and only at the end,
It's too
well,
late.
it's you might have missed a lot of opportunities for you to actually develop a differentiated product, a product that is not only going head to head with cheese, but actually bringing some extra benefits to the consumer.
Yeah, and ultimately those become your marketing front of pack uh, communication tools. So you want to
And
be
it
able
becomes
to
your
fold those in.
differentiation. It
Right.
becomes your true differentiation that makes you difficult to copy. That makes that
Mm.
makes you difficult to copy by by the retail. That makes you difficult for that really gives you something more.
Hmm. While we're on this topic, I'd love to ask you. So I think we're all probably thinking traditional brands in mind here. You mentioned plant-based foods and plant-based cheese going up against regular cheese. But I'm interested, sort of, if we take a step back from brand specific or category specific, but in general, are we going to see a development of what I would call almost a completely new category or sector, which is the category of personalized health? So I'll just take a random example. If you go to the doctor and you get your blood taken, or maybe you are able to do it yourself at some point, and you get your own stats and you say, like, oh gosh, I'm low in vitamin D. Are you going to be able to curate your own foods with more vitamin D? I'm maybe going a little bit too sci-fi for people, or not sci-fi enough. I don't know. What do you think?
Um,
Like, you're going to be able to go online and say, I'm ordering my plant-based burgers with added vitamin D. I don't know. What do you think?
I think personalized nutrition, it's not a myth. It's absolutely happening, and it will materialize in truly ways of mapping the different sciences that will help us get there. The microbiome, uh, really very advanced science on genetics, etc., etc. Um, for that to become, I mean, there are already things that are pretty good. I mean,
What is this?
this is lumen, this is a device that actually you inhale in it and uh, exhale, and it tells you in which state are you burning fat or are you burning carbohydrates, and then you can actually think about which what type of meal in terms of in terms of macronutrient composition, if you're trying to lose weight or whatever that you.
Wait. Hold the phone. So everybody on audio, she basically pulled out like a black tube. Looked like a tube to
Human,
me.
it's in there, everybody knows it.
Lumen.
It's,
Okay.
yeah,
Why do I not know about this? Lumen. Okay.
you don't need to lose weight.
Of course.
You don't need
You
it.
come back all the time. Gosh, I love you.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I only have it because I'm a data freak,
Ah,
and I
I
want, and they really have done some work on how to actually uh, um, compare their results to metabolic chambers, where
cool.
we, which is really like it's very
In
the
the
way.
weeds. Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
That's
Um,
great. Okay,
so
well, I see
it's
that too.
possible, but my point here is that personalized nutrition will advance step by step, and I think it will surprise us by having a lot of these sciences actually combined together at some point and giving you really clear directions for that are personalized to you. But in the meantime, there are things that are probably valid for most of the population that we can hit with this, what you call big categories or genetic categories. And I think that's how we can probably most achieve health for us and for the planet.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I want to talk about that, how it's really related, personal health and the planet, or are they two different subjects? But before we go to that, I want to stay on personalized health and nutrition. So there's been a lot of talk about the microbiome and what it means to have a healthy gut microbiome and fermented foods, traditionally fermented foods, not precision fermentation or biomass fermentation that we talk about for novel plant-based technologies and foods, but sort of your sauerkraut and kimchi, these traditionally fermented foods.
Yogurt.
What now?
Yogurt.
A yogurt, but yeeks. Yes, yogurt.
What do you mean by yeeks yogurt?
Eeks, like, well, I stay away from animal products for myself.
Okay.
But there are fermented foods here, and yogurt's one of them.
There are
Although
fermented foods that are not animal based.
Animal based, yes. And I think even Lifeway, which does kefir, has come out with an Oatly or an oat based kefir. So, you can do your research, folks, and find the thing that's right for you. But do you see that we will have a spike in this kind of prebiotic and probiotic? So, prebiotic, if I understand it correctly, kind of prepping your.
It's the food for probiotics. How about that?
Okay, it's the food for probiotics. Thank you. So, and probiotics, making sure your gut biome is working well, and then prebiotics, as you say, like prepping the internal system. It gives them the right foods to eat. Yeah.
If you think about our gut as a neighborhood, as a city, there are good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. Unfortunately, we haven't managed to have a society where all the neighborhoods are great.
Yeah. Another show.
So that's for another. And so the probiotics actually, they kind of like take care of the bad neighborhoods and replace it, give the opportunity to the good neighborhoods to grow. And the prebiotics actually are the food for probiotics. So you have better, healthier neighborhoods in your gut.
And you need both, of course. You need to feed the probiotics with good prebiotics. And do you see more brands incorporating messaging around?
I have done my PhD on prebiotics.
Well, you're the guest for today.
Very long time ago. We're talking 1998. So
not that long. It's long, but not that
long. It's long. It's a long time ago. So they've been here for a long time. It is not. It's not new. It took a long time for prebiotics and probiotics to get recognized by consumer, and I think today they are. They are, because if you put probiotics on something, consumers that do recognize it. They mainly attach it to digestive health or immunity. And even if you don't like it, it's actually really a company called Danone that made a lot, and Nestle, that they did a lot of work in research and science and in marketing to really make those the awareness and to generate a lot of the science that actually does that link. So if I would say, if pre and probiotics, if there are two that would have really truly a good chance of being not only picked up, because they're already picked up by consumers, to grow, I would say these two are well positioned.
These two companies, you mean? Or
no, prebiotic and probiotics.
I see. Sorry.
But we're now at the next level with all the work on the microbiome. It's not just only a question of neighborhoods, etc. That was a very, very, like, we could say that 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But now we're really finding like how they interact with our overall health, in
brain health,
a lot of brain health, with our mental health, with our cardiovascular health, with inflammation, with so many other things. So that is going to be a little bit of a challenge in terms of explaining to consumers how come that you eat something and then the gut brain axis actually makes your mood better. it will be a challenge with the consumers to get to that point of understanding of the benefits that they could have, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible.
Not at all. The power of marketing. I mean, happy food, basically. I love this thought, and I think more and more people are going to, as life gets more and more stressful and more volatile, with perhaps another pandemic coming our way. I mean, you just don't know, and another war, you just don't know. And I think people are going to be looking to find, as they lean on things like CBD, I think they're going to lean on things like probiotic, food as medicine, what they can do to feel better and up their mood.
Yep. Well, if you look at the trends, and if you look at actually the top benefits that I mean, mental health is always in the
Yes,
top three.
of course.
Immunity, weight management. I mean, these are the ones that are on the top most of the time.
Yeah, I think this is an enormous sector for businesses to build out, this idea of food as medicine. I mean, you hear about it a lot, but I think you could go a lot deeper with better products and more educational products about it. And I see this category really developing. But one thing that I hear a lot about, did you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Yeah, what bothers me with food as a medicine, it's
Mm.
not that I don't believe. I have a strong belief in it. I've spent many years studying it, so you can't find a more believer than that, than somebody like me. But what I do believe, it's a little bit of an elitist way of looking
Mm.
at food, because I don't think that it's the case of the regular consumers.
Mm.
A lot of people, if you look at the mainstream, if you look at low income consumers, if we really want to have an impact on the health of the population, food as medicine, personalized nutrition will first be for the very, 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 very small part of the population. It might, in few decades, become more, they will be democratized, but today and in the next few years, if we really want to have an impact on people and on the planet, we got to adopt probably a message and things that are more into people's life every day.
So not asking people to do more work, to get more education, to learn more things, but just make it readily available for them. Is that what you're saying?
Um, in my whole, we've had this conversation, I think, in one of the corridors of one of the conferences.
Conferences.
I am I'm very obsessed by consumers and what they need. And I think we haven't done enough work on what consumers need and what actually the product that we put in the market, especially for plant-based, what jobs are they doing for our consumers?
Mm-hmm.
We have, and I'm really interested, I'm including myself in this. We camped on a moral tower that says, hey, this is bad for the planet, this is bad for animals, this is bad for everyone, for your health. So consumers, you know what, you really need to get into eating better, because that will help the planet, will help you. You're not well educated, but you really should be more educated. And it's absolutely, in my view, not the way to get consumers to adopt anything. What we haven't done is to go on the field, talk to people, see what are their needs, what are the jobs that are not done in their lives that we can actually have candidates for, and deliver that through plant-based. We went with our identity, like, see, originally I'm Moroccan. Like, I'm going to you, Elizabeth, and I say, hey, in your consultancy, you should hire me because I'm Moroccan. It doesn't mean anything. It's just like we're going to consumers, said, I'm plant-based, I'm good for you and for the planet and for everybody. Hire me. We're not taking the approach of going to consumers and saying, what's your problem? I can be a solution to your problem. And I can even be a better solution to your problem than the product that you're taken today.
But now I would advocate that the consumer does want to be healthier. The consumer is looking for a really easy access, like don't make it expensive, make it easy that I can either find it easily or I can afford it easily or I can cook it easily. And of course, it's got to taste great because I'm not going to suffer through that. And neither are my children. So,
Mhm.
I'm not going to have a fight every day at dinner that you have to eat this. I already have that with vegetables. So that plant-based thing's got to have lots of protein and it's got to be all these things that I mentioned. I think we've tried very hard to deliver on that. The royal we. But I agree with you. You can't disregard the consumer, but I think we haven't. But you feel like we have.
I'm not saying anything different than what you said, but what I'm saying is we the example that I always give, it's the example of a mom that is not having any problem with the planet, not having any
Right.
problem with anything, but just having a problem of getting vegetables into her kids without drama during the day. That is her problem. She does not have the time to think about any of those other things.
Yeah. It has to be
So
easy, accessible, tastes great, low
exactly.
cost.
So
And
I'm not saying anything different, but I'm saying if we actually looked at what are the ways to deliver to this mom vegetables that taste good, that her kids could have without the drama, then maybe we wouldn't be doing burgers. Maybe we would be doing something completely different. I have no idea.
Mhm,
I'm
mhm,
really not making a judgment on the
mhm.
product format, but I'm saying that we would frame the problem in a different way
Different way.
if we started with consumer problems
Mhm.
versus saying we are plant-based, we're going to replace what is animal-based by plant-based. And it will actually ultimately, in my view,
Go further, faster.
no, not necessarily. I don't know that. So
Mm.
I might be wrong about that. But we need to do both. We need to do the replace, but we also need to do the displace. So sometimes it's not taking exactly the place of meat, but it's taking the place of something else that actually will take out the need of having meat.
What would be an example of that?
An example of that, a lot of people are eating keto diets.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
And when we see in keto diets and when people start eating keto, their intake of meat
Skyrockets. Yes.
skyrockets. So if we were able to actually provide them, I don't know, with snacks that are very high in proteins or with other things that are high in proteins or with wraps that are actually with proteins that come from plant-based proteins,
Mhm.
they might not need to eat all of that
Mhm.
meat.
Mhm. It should be so
So
much better for them.
that's what
It,
I call displays. So you're not attacking it directly, but you are decreasing the need of it and you're delivering in almost a different category than
yeah.
meat. But you are actually addressing a need of the
The-
consumer.
so you're doing more listening than telling. You're doing more pulling than pushing, if that's really the right expression, and it probably isn't. I'll throw a wrench in, and of course we won't be able to solve this today, but I would argue that I mean, wouldn't it be great if we could? But I would argue that the average American is obsessed with protein, doesn't need as much as they think they need. They
Mhm.
have some awful misconceptions about nutrition, like I can't have soy, it will give me male breasts. This kind of, and again, obsession with protein. I'm not getting enough. I'm not getting enough when the average American gets more than they need. So I hear what you're saying, that listen to consumers and solve that problem. Classic marketing, really. But at the same time, sometimes the consumer doesn't know, like, food is not technology. I get that. Although technology is in food and always has been, but food is not technology. So the comparison to an iPhone isn't fair. But no one created the iPhone thinking consumers were asking for it. Consumers had no idea what it would be or that they would ever want it or need it. So,
I defer to not agree on that one either.
oh,
Consumers,
great! Oh my God,
consumers
we're
do
gonna have to do
not
this again.
consumers do not know what they want, but consumers do know what they don't want. And
Ah, yeah, fair enough.
at that time, they knew they did not want the BlackBerry. They knew they hated the BlackBerry. They knew it was not really because the BlackBerry was picked by the IT people in the companies that were giving the BlackBerry to their
To
employees.
people.
They were not picked by people, by consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So Apple knew that very well.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot ask consumers to do our job and find the solution for us, but they can tell us pretty well what their problems are.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're saying there. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that consumers right now with food, they have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
They're not satisfied.
And so to go to your point about proteins, I 100% agree with you. Nobody in the very few people, let's not be absolutist, in the Western world need more protein.
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. Everybody needs fibers.
Yes.
But in that context, we have solutions. If you look at mycoproteins, I mean, seriously, we have an opportunity here when we are thinking about replacing animal proteins. We don't have to replace it one to one. We can replace it in a different way. Mycoproteins are really the way forward, in my opinion, when you're not looking for a specific functionality. If you're looking for foaming, or if you're looking for gelation, or if you're looking, then you need really the functionality of protein. But if you are looking for delivering proteins to consumers, if you go the way of mycoproteins, you will be actually balancing the diet. And the reason why you would be balancing the diet, it's mycoproteins are actually most of the time 40 to 50% protein, 40 to 35, 40% dietary fibers. And some of them have added benefits, and 15% fat, and a lot of other micronutrients that can have benefits that depend on maybe antioxidants or whatever that could be.
A whole
So
food.
imagine where we have 100 gram of protein, and we replace it by 45 plus 35, 45 plus 35. Help me.
80,
A booster.
80, 80, 80, 80, 45 plus 35, 80. Everyone do the math. 80.
And 20% fat, or maybe less, plus the water, etc.
Yeah, no, I'm a firm believer as well. So we agree on that.
We would be solving truly a problem for our consumers while balancing the diet.
While balancing the planet. And I want to get to that before we end today. So, you think about mycoproteins and what they can replace in terms of that enormous, inefficient middleman, which is the animal. So you wouldn't have to cut down those trees, which, you need trees to pull carbon from the air, but trees also give oxygen. So we sort of need them, but we cut them down. We grow crops that have fiber and protein. Are we giving that food to people? No, we're giving it to animals. They need water, land, time. Well, they need more food, cut down more trees, and here we go. So very inefficient. You think of mycoprotein, which I think you can grow. This is a gross generalization. I'm sure it will depend on every producer, but you can grow something the size of a cow in a day or two, I believe. So extremely, and this is the task that we have in front of us. How do we feed more people more nutritiously, using fewer resources in a shorter amount of time, creating less damage? I really believe you check all those boxes, as well as things like food as medicine and high fiber and high protein, all these things with mycoprotein. But let me stay, if I can, on the planet issue. So often we hear like, oh, take back your health and the health of the planet by switching the food supply system to be more sustainable, and that would be plant-based innovation. Is that true? Or let me rephrase it. How does a better nutritional product mean planetary health, except for the business equation that I just said about efficiency and not cutting down trees? Is there any other reason that I'm missing that a clean label product is better than a not clean label product, plant-based only, for the planet?
So you're asking a question that I cannot answer to. As a scientist, you need to compare things with one parameter that is different. So I cannot answer your question like that. But what I can answer,
Fair
because I
enough.
have the data for it, it's now we have the life cycle analysis that was done by Beyond Meat
University
and
of
by
Michigan.
Impossible on their products. So prior to that, we were looking at macro data on how beef and how agriculture is destructive, etc. And we had a lot of criticism. Fine. Now we have two leaders who have their, it's a beginning.
Yes.
And from that beginning, we definitely can see that there is less land use, less water consumption, and less carbon emissions. So, and these are products that actually do not have a clean label.
Right. They're healthier, I would argue, but they're, it's not a carrot.
They do not have. So I'm just going to the question about clean label
Yeah.
and telling you, okay, I have two examples where I have the science to back it up. And this, if we go back first to the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about big companies and how they have actually done their targets, et cetera, et cetera. This is what we need to do as a category. As a category, we need to actually have the science to back up not only the global, the macro data, because the macro data is very convincing and it can absolutely be talking points for us. But beyond that, going into having our own proprietary data on the products themselves.
I think you'll see more of that.
It's great. Third step is to have targets.
Yes, you'll see more of that as well. I think with 2030 coming and 2050 coming and pressure from the SEC to have disclosures about emissions throughout the supply chain, that's scope 1, 2, and 3, all levels of the supply chain. I think there's pressure on brands from all sides.
Well, I'm specifically talking about the plant-based category because that is the category that I really care a lot about, and that's nutrition and sustainability. The reason why I left the industry is to work on more sustainable solutions, and that goes from plant-based to precision fermentation to cellular agriculture to all of these products that come from technologies. And I really care about the fact that they're successful, that they're also successful in the way they are messaging their brands and the way they're bringing science, the way they're talking about their safety, and the way they were talking about the value proposition. A lot of the time, we're talking about just the technology. We should never be doing that. We should actually be talking about everything that goes with it. For example, when a company actually that is making, let's say, fermentation, precision fermentation, or biomass fermentation, they should be talking about where they get their inputs, the farmers that actually work, how many farmers where they get their inputs, the countries the communities that they're helping, where they build their factories, or where are factories where their product is fermented. All of that is part of it. It sounds like sometimes when we're doing products that come from new technologies, we are it's less human than agriculture. It's not necessarily that.
I think you're really going to see that. GFI, for the brands on this show who are listening, has done some instructional reporting on how to do your own life cycle analysis and get that done for each brand. What Maha was referring to is the University of Michigan life cycle analysis for Beyond Meat, which means they use 99% less water, 93% less land, produce 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and use 46% less energy. How I know that off the top of my head, just please don't ask, but I do. So I think you're going to see more brands dive into doing a life cycle analysis as they do ESG messaging for the planet as well as for people's health. So knowing those supply chains and knowing those stories, those personal human stories along the supply chain, I think I agree with you 100%. And it's coming. And it's fun to see marketing and business and sustainability and nutrition all find a home and dialogue together. Okay, as we wrap up here, I have a couple quick exit questions for you. If I were to make a prediction about 2023, it would be that there is going to be more messaging around supply chains and where brands are sourcing their products. I'm wondering if you have any predictions for 2023 in this particular nutrition sustainability category.
Which one I pick? that's the thing. I think I'm hoping that we are going to see a little bit. You might not like this, Elizabeth, but this is going with consumers. We might see plant-based being used as positive ingredients in recipes and in so we might be doing a step back for 2 steps forward to actually enroll more people. So for example, when we see Impossible in breakfast at Starbucks, it does have eggs that are free range, so it's an animal product that is with it, but we are trying to recruit more people. So using plant-based as a positive ingredient as part of something that people actually eat very widely. So
I would agree with that 100%.
okay.
I think you.
I don't want to finish on a bad note.
No. I agree 100%. I think you're even going to go one step further, and you're going to see companies that, meat is sort of the OG of processed meat, right? Hot dogs and bacon and deli sandwiches and sausages. These are all processed meats. They created the category, and then they owned it until they tried to be negative about it for plant-based. But they actually own processed meats. I think you're going to see more and more processed meats include higher percentages of plant-based fillers as a way to get their carbon footprint numbers down. So companies are going to always be concerned about their profit loss statements and now their carbon footprint. These numbers are going to matter as well. So they're going to, for a bunch of reasons, sustainability, planetary health, personal health, et cetera, I think they're going to start incorporating more plants.
It's a way for us to really, truly expand the category and
Yes.
not have just 2 or 3 SKUs that are like the burger, the sausage, and the minced meat. No, we got to go outside of that and be more ubiquitous in the food.
I love this also because if you have 2 sides of the spectrum, so you have plant-based and then you have meat over here, this brings them closer together. And then before you know it, they're kind of one and the same. And you haven't really noticed that, plant-based meat is really your meat. That's just your meat.
Before you know it, people have their palate that has been educated for the taste.
Yes.
And before you know it, we have also actually learned a lot about consumers, about their needs, and about how to make a better taste and texture.
Yes.
Which is what we need to do.
Yes, all of this we must do, folks. So get to work. A couple more extra questions as we just start off to our crazy lives, both you and I. Maha, thank you for being here with me. Keep it as short as you can, just kind of an off-the-cuff answer. What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
I wish I knew that having more companies to work for was more fulfilling than to work for one company.
I love that thought because I do so much consulting as well. And I love the diversity. I just love it. It's so rich. And I just feel that I'm able to help so many brands and move them all forward in a way. It's like passing the baton to the next person. I love it.
And it's just one day you're working on science. The second day you're working on route to market. The third day you're working on HR and structure and organizational design. I just absolutely love it. So
it's wonderful. Okay, so if you're running around, you're having a busy day and it's not going as you would like, what is the phrase you tell yourself to get yourself back in the groove?
To get myself back in the groove, I can walk on the beach later today.
If you've got that option, you are pretty lucky.
I do.
Wait, are you in Ecuador right now?
I am not yet in Ecuador, but I still have a beach in Florida.
Okay, you're in Florida. Well, good for you. And it's probably lovely weather there. That's fantastic. Okay, same busy day. You're running around and you're so busy that you didn't have time for lunch. What is your go-to snack?
Uh, that would be my go-to snack. I'm really good with my habits.
I bet you are.
Yeah, I'm Moroccan and French originally, so we kind of like we kind I really like. I mean, at noon I start having my teams in the companies I worked in will tell you that by noon they kind of like start seeing me like who's gonna go for lunch, who's gonna go for lunch.
Are you saying you don't
So,
snack? Is this what I understand?
I no, I do, but it's not like it's not something I do every day. What I do is I have my meals. I really like
I
having my
snack for
meals.
the two of us. Oh, I knew there was a
That's good
problem.
for you.
I still have my meals. I just
here's,
snack.
here's the
Oh,
thing. Here's the thing. I am a strong believer on food patterns. It depends. It's be consistent with your body. Be consistent with what you do day in and day out. Don't be completely erratic with, okay, one day I have meals, the other day I have five snacks, and then the other day I'm going to have one meal. If your body is knows what you're doing, and actually your body is probably telling you, I'm hungry now, and you're really listening to what's going on, then it's fine. It's not a question about what that's why I couldn't respond to your question. It's because for me, that's what I do. It's I wake up, I eat, and then at noon I'm starting like to say, what's going on? I need to eat something.
I love
Um,
it. You heard it here first, everybody. Pick your routine and stick to it so your body
It's your
knows
routine and stick
exactly
to it.
what's
Best
going
things
on.
on food behaviors is 80% of what you do is probably right. There's
And
just
stick to that.
to change.
I see what you're saying. 80% is right, but it's that 20%. If you could get that down to like 15% going off the
So the
reservation, it'd be so.
20% is like if you have a routine that's on timing and chrono nutrition is very important. Keep it.
Uh-huh. I see.
Don't be erratic.
Uh-huh. Gosh, all right. We've learned so much here. I hope you'll come back. Really, this has been such a great education. And of course, Veganuary 2023 is the time to do it. So I'm just so happy to have you here. I want to say
Thank you.
goodbye
Thanks
and
for having
thank
me.
you,
Thank you
Dr.
very much
Maha.
for having me. It was
It's
we've had
fun.
so many conversations that this one is just adding to the joy of discussing with you.
Yes, it was about time I had you on the Plant-Based Business Hour. So thank you for all you do, bringing your incredible knowledge drop to the Plant-Based Business Hour community, as well as the entire plant-based and food community. So thank you for all you do, Dr. Maha Tahiri, Maha to us, and everybody else on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. I will see you all next week. Maha, stay put. Everybody else, thanks for being with me. Bye, folks.